Pardon me?
Do we fill it up?
Yeah, I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to walk you through it. There you go. Okay, and you see this is out of our fitness center. So again, the top is some demographic stuff that you can disregard. Okay, but here's what I don't want you to disregard. All right, gang, I did an easy one that has round numbers. Okay, if you're going to do a carboning on somebody, you need two things. You used to need three, but you just need two now. Before, you needed to know the sex of the person, their age, and their resting heart rate. That's changed. All we need to know now is their resting heart rate and their age. Okay? So, in this example that I have over next door, because it has round numbers so you don't get a lot of decimal points, let's have a 40-year-old male. So go ahead, put in age 40, you can put sex male if you want, and then resting heart rate. We determined he has a resting heart rate of 70. Now having said that, the only true way to get a resting heart rate on somebody is generally right after they've awakened from sleep. So that's not always possible when they roll into the fitness center in the middle of the afternoon. They've drank, 12 Red Bulls at that point and smoked 2 packs of cigarettes or whatever. So sometimes we have to make an educated guess. Whatever it is, we could perhaps err on the side of caution, minus 10%, something like that. But again, that's only a guess. We would ask them at some point to maybe refine that, lay off the Diet Pepsis and the Red Bulls and all that, and don't smoke a case of cigarettes in the day, and try to get something a little bit different. So for the sake of argument, I'm providing you this guy has a resting heart rate of 70. So where we go next, and this is crucial, right here is where I'm pointing, gang. You take the number 220 and minus the person's age. So with this example, I took 220 minus the age of 40, and we get 180. That's what we call the predicted maximum heart rate. So, Tamla, we're going to train this guy at 180 beats per minute?
Yeah. For like 1 minute.
No. Good. You're not as good. No, we're not going to. Not even close. That's if we had some kind of a conditioned athlete that was used to that load, working in VT2 and the rest of it. No. That's the predicted maximum heart rate for somebody that's conditioned. But that's a starting point. So where we come next, in this formula here, we take the PMHR, which is 180, and then I just took 70 over these coefficients, so 180 minus 70, and we'll call that coefficient then what's in the parentheses of 110. Everybody with me so far? Okay? Now, we've got a coefficient that we can use. I'm going to circle that, so we don't have to figure that out again. So what's in the parentheses here, we never have to figure out again for this subject, at least for the time being. And then you see that I have multipliers of 0.6, 0.7, and 0.8. Those are what we call heart rate reserve training coefficients. But they may not be appropriate. If you have somebody that's deconditioned, 60% heart rate reserve might be too much, but we're taking into assumption we have somebody that's been cleared for medically to do some kind of fitness realm. So 60, 70, and 80% are as well, using the example here. So if you take that coefficient of 110 and times it by 0.6 or 60%, that would get you 66, and then you add back in the resting heart rate, which would be 70. So 60% heart rate reserve would be 136. Taking that logic another step farther, 110 times 0.7 or 70% heart rate reserve would be 77. Add that resting heart rate of 70, 147, and so on. We'd take our coefficient of 110 and times it by 0.8. That would get us 88, plus the resting heart rate 70, 158. So a safe target heart range for an asymptomatic person, 136 to 158. That's something you could probably live with.
Is that gonna be, is 158 gonna be like right around like zone 4? Or is there anaerobic threshold?
It's hard to tell, Nathan. I don't know for sure. And again, the way around that is you'd be giving that person a talk test or monitoring them and see how they're going. But gang, so here, listen to me. You can use a target heart range, or excuse me, a training heart range of any percentage that you like. This example that I just gave that was using round numbers. So for instance, if you had a deconditioned subject, maybe 0.5 or 50% heart rate reserve would be appropriate. You have to use your best judgment in that. But I want you to keep that and work a few, okay? I don't take, I don't do homework or anything like that, but I want to be sure that you can do that. So if you can't, that's what I'm here for. I love this stuff. So work a few on break or overnight or in the next few days, okay? And what we'll do, I'll throw a couple at you every periodically so everybody's comfortable with that. Reason being, one, it's very good information to know if you happen to want to train somebody and do the cardiovascular portion of training, which I hope you would. And two, liability reasons. And three, on the national certification exam, I had 6 of these, okay?
Wow.
6. Steve Dixon, who you met last night, he didn't have any. Excuse me. Another lady that I trained was sitting next to Steve in that examination. She had 4 of them, so you don't know what you're going to get when you get the computer-generated exam. Isn't that crazy?
How is that even a standard then?
I'm only speculating, they probably have, I don't know, 20 or 25 different variants of the same test. Technically the same difficulty level, but do you see, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. You may not see one of these in your national certification exam, but if you do, I want to make sure that I showed you how to do it, right?
What's this called?
The Carbonin formula. The Carbonin formula.
Is that C-A-R-V-O-N?
K with a K. K-A-R-V-O-N-E-N, and it's in your text. But I wanted to show it to you. Okay, so we're starting out. And again, I didn't want to get to this last night, but we did. So by God, we're going to get to it. We're going to put an exclamation point on what we talked about last night. This is working out well.
Thanks for getting the fans. Does it make a difference? Oh, usually. Thanks.
Everybody got one now?
Maybe one more.
No.
I gave mine away.
There you go. A courteous bunch. Okay. All right, gang.
I was just leaving there, really.
Now, a couple of things. So, this is kind of a nice handout. You're going to refer to these. So we're talking about blood pressure.
That's going to shift though. The more fit they get, they're going to be able to train at this heart rate longer for. So
absolutely,
it's going to be. So this might be the lower end,
the
lower level, and through
It could be.
Okay.
It could be. That I'm trying to give an example, just a typical example, because as I said, these multipliers, you might be starting out at 0.5, 0.6, or 0.4,
Oh, they're
5 and 6. Yeah.
They're going to be the same value. You're going to start at a lower scale. Okay,
Yeah, your
gotcha.
PMHR won't change,
Okay.
resting heart rate won't change. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that. But again, in this example that I used, because you had round numbers, that's what's nice.
Well, wasn't the resting heart rate, it would end up changing over time though, wouldn't it?
Your resting heart rate? Absolutely.
Your maximum heart rate would stay this. It would change with age, but it would stay that same for
Your
that
predicted
age.
maximum
Yes.
heart rate will change every year.
Every year, yeah.
Yep. Your resting heart rate, again, an adaptation to impose stress. Like I said, my heart rate gets down really low if I'm running a lot of miles and I'm diving a lot. So, yeah, these things will change. It's by no means static, it's dynamic. But a conditioned heart will slow down the more conditioned it gets and the more efficient it becomes. So, like I said, with low heart rates, especially in the diving community, we wear them like a badge. Because generally, if you have a really low heart rate, you can control your breathing too, and you can make an 80 cubic foot tank last a long time. That benefited me on a dive boat several times when the operator forgot to put enough tanks on the boat.
Oh, jeez.
So I was doing my second dive on my first tank. My girlfriend is better than I am, but that's one of the, again, we train for a vacation when we take one. But anyways, let's look at the blood pressure for a minute, because we'll talk about this a little bit later tonight. Things have changed again over the years. In the old days, the old standard 120, a systole of 120 over a diastole of 80 was like you were good to go. Notice now, you got the less than symbol ahead of them both, all right? So below 120 over 80 is what's considered normal now. And the thing is, most people that you meet during the course of the day, if they've had those monster drinks and all the rest of it, they're going to be technically in this category of pre-hypertensive. I kid you not, I wouldn't kid anybody about that. Okay, and then farther down, of course, we have the stage 1 and the stage 2 hypertensions, which are generally bad. Now, we'll let our hair down here. I think I'm a pretty fit guy. I'm on a blood pressure medication. It's a genetic little bullet that gets shot at you, I guess. I didn't know I was hypertensive till in my late 20s. And I went to tie my shoes one day and my head just started pounding. I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And that went on for a couple of days. So I had a friend that was a doctor. I said, hey, John, when I tie my shoes, my head pounds. Is that good? No, that's not good. So he put a blood pressure cuff on me and my systole was over 200. And he goes, you know, one of those, sit down, do you feel okay? Yeah, man, I feel fine. Got a big shot of something. We got a problem here. So anyways, just out of the blue it happened. So he had a girlfriend that was driving me crazy, but I'm not blaming her. I think it's genetic, you know. So anyways, just had some stuff going on. You're laughing there, Todd.
No, it's just the truth.
Yeah. And then, ladies, I'm sure a boyfriend could drive you crazy too. So I'm being an equal employer here. Now, so let's turn our page. Women can drive men crazy. Men can drive women crazy. We both know that. Okay. So, look on page 2. We got into this last night, so I just wanted to put an exclamation point on it so you had these numbers in your hand. They're in your book as well, but like I said, the one on the right, the 0 to 10, call it the category ratio scale. The one on the left, the RPE 6 through 20, that's also known as the Borg scale. Borg makes more sense, but when everybody gets the 1 to 10 or the 0 to 10, it's just what we were designed with, and we hear all the time. But again, so remember the Borg scale, if you want to make it work properly, if you added a 0 after the 6 and the 20, that would correspond to a heart rate of 60 up to 200, which seems pretty accurate. All right? We good with that? All right. And then lastly, typical physiological assessments, okay? This is what we do in our gym. Now I can't specify what other gyms do, but we try to do things the correct way. Like I said, it scares me, gang, when I've had trainers certified by their sanctioning bodies, thought never crossed their mind to do a carbonum on somebody. Okay? Kind of scares me a little bit. Also scares me when people tell other people to eat chicken breasts and that's it. Stuff like that. That's why you're here. We're trying to do things correctly. Okay? Now if you love chicken breasts all the time, that's cool, but I think if you want to get a good workout, you're going to have to get some carbs involved there at some point. All right?
Science over Instagram?
Yeah. So anyways, some typical physiological assessments that you can do. Resting vital signs, and I've noticed the resting might be like with quotation marks, because you might not get a true one, but, and again, use all your senses when you're doing an interview with somebody too. Even though I have sinus infections, man, I can smell pot and tobacco like right now. So I'm talking to somebody, elevated heart rate, yeah, I can tell they're a smoker, okay? Because if they've had the weed, usually it'll be the other way, but I can smell that pretty easily too. Get the weed going, the heart rate might actually be a little bit lower. Okay, static posture, look at there. We had our plumb line last night. Okay, joint flexibility and muscle strength. Yeah, start doing some planking with somebody. Balance and core function, and the rest of it, okay? Like I said, body composition, very interesting. As a personal trainer, I can't believe a lot of personal trainers don't gain expertise in that. You can make so many sales of your skills if you can do a bunch of things. You can't be everything to everybody. You can be a lot to most people, though. And anybody that has the desire for weight mitigation, body comp is one of the first things I would go to. All right? Okay? Muscular endurance and muscular strength and skill-rated parameters, of course. Okay? Assessment should be performed only after the trainer has identified a client's personality style, readiness to change behavior, and then we'll get into this later. It's called stages of behavioral change. It's called the trans-theoretical model. It's kind of a big word. We'll get into that a little bit. But yes. So, gang, wouldn't you want to have your toolbox equipped with as many tools as you could? These things aren't difficult once you learn how to do it. Okay? It's awesome. We have a lot of faculty that come here, and they hear, Zach, can you do a body comp? Well, yeah. Wear some loose clothing and don't work out. Give me a call a little ahead of time. I'll make sure the calipers are sanitized, and we'll do it. No big deal. So everybody kind of looks at amazement. What do you do? Yes, Anna.
What do you do your body compositions on?
I'm sorry.
What do you do them on?
I usually use what are called skin fold calipers. And there's differing sites on the subject's body that I'll palpate and measure millimeters of subcutaneous fat, okay? And through a couple of formulas, you can stand a reasonable chance of predicting what their body composition is, percent fat.
What do you think about the Tanita scan?
I'm sorry?
What do you think about the Tanita scan?
Electronic scans.
Oh, the electronic scans? My apology, I'm stuffed up. My honest opinion from what I've seen is they're crap. Okay? They work on a theory called galvanic skin response, and they're highly unreliable. A couple people at MMC use them, and then I'll go to, and they'll tell me, oh yeah, with the electronic or galvanic skin response, 3% body fat, and I can look at them from 100 yards away and go, no way.
I have one of them. I can bring it in.
I have one too in my car.
Yeah.
We should compare.
Yes.
To the
It would
one
be
you
fun.
have and-
Yeah,
I've never
and
seen it.
generally, what I find, it's one, operator error, or two, the person is either overhydrated or underhydrated as well. What did yours say you were, Anna?
Oh gosh, no one I know.
Okay, okay. Todd, what did yours say?
24% body fat.
I bet that's pretty accurate then. Let's do some comparing. I'm confident in my skills, I'd love to. Okay? But again, now when you do skin fold calipers, you have to have a couple of criteria in place though. There can't be hypertrophy present. Okay, so the person has to be cool. Okay? And they have to be in normal spirits and not overhydrated or underhydrated. That's about it. Not too much criteria other than that. It'll be fun.
How do you deal with the person that's got a lot of mesenteric fat?
What's that?
A lot of mesenteric fat. They don't. They got
The big
beer belly, but you can't pinch a skin fold.
Sometimes you have to say I can't do this, and be diplomatic and politically correct and all the rest. Yes, Or you get the person, I hate to say it, but the, I think the term is gynoid. The pear-shaped, the big old pear shape, and yeah, what am I gonna get the calipers on, you know? You need a set of
Get a
calipers
C-clamp?
like a, you know, a hedge trimmers or something, you know, so, I had a lady, it's pretty humiliating, she wanted it done anyway, and it's like, okay, you know? So, anyways, it's better off in the learning stages, men do men and women do women, for obvious reasons. So, if you do a woman, I'm a man obviously, I'll tell them, wear loose clothing, because you can't have a binding sports bra or, you know, a tight kind of undergarment. So I gotta be able to reach under and do it. Okay, men were less bashful, but so, and again, out of modesty and so forth, but I do women all the time. Okay, they trust me.
Where do you normally check, like what?
It depends, and it's a good question. There's differing sites for differing philosophies, okay? In our textbook, we use Jackson and Pollock, okay? And they have a couple of different zones for men versus women, okay? I use Donahue's method. I do a bi, a tri, a scapular, and an epigastric, okay? So,
So you
again,
don't-
we'll get into that in the next book here. But yeah, so, and what's interesting is sometimes that's where you get practice, you know? You do something enough times, you get better at it. Sometimes the different criteria might be better for a different population group. The Donahue criteria, for me, seems to be more accurate for women. The findings that I get tend to verify what my eyes are telling me. Now, skin fold calipers are not without fault, of course, because Nathan hooked onto something there earlier. If somebody has a bunch of not subcutaneous, my apology, interstitial fat grouped upon the organs, the skin fold calipers won't detect that. And here's an example. The gentleman, he's much older now, but he used to be a competitor in the Mr. Olympia contest in the late 80s and the early 90s. Anybody into the bodybuilding scene from that time? His name's Albert Beckles. And Albert Beckles was about as ripped as you can get. His skin looked like the saran wrap. He was an African American, but the beautiful skin tone, and I mean, you could see every muscle. Did overhead shots, the serratus were popping out and all the rest of it. Well, anyways, your eyes would tell you, and skin fold calipers would tell you he's probably around 3% body fat, something like that. Well, the most accurate means of of body composition is called hydrostatic immersion. So what a person displaces in water, but the drawback from hydrostatic immersion is, one, the cost of the equipment's very expensive, and two, the person has to have enough breath control that they can dump all of their air out of their lungs and sink, okay? So if somebody's prone to claustrophobia and so forth, that won't work, okay? I'm an avid scuba diver, and when I'm doing instruction, I'll flip out the class because I'll dump my air out of, I'll be swimming around or whatever, get out of my gear, walk out of it and start walking around on the bottom of the pool. And people look at me like, what's going on? I'm walking like I am now, right on the bottom of the pool. Because I can get rid of all my air, or almost all of it, and it doesn't make me claustrophobic, because I'm comfortable in that environment. So long story short, somebody did a comparison with skin fold calipers on Albert Beckles, and then compared it and contrasted it with hydrostatic immersion, okay? He found out he has a heart attack waiting to happen. 15%. And they did some blood work on him and so forth and found that to be true. So it's not the end all. It's, if you're good with any of these things, then you can sell that though and market it. Skin fold calipers are cheap, and if you get good with them, they're very accurate.
Where do you get them?
Pardon me?
Where do you get them?
You can probably get them online now. In the past, any like a pharmacy would have them and so forth. Now you can probably get them online. I have several pairs here, and we can play with them. That's, that's what we're here for.
I got a pair at the department. I can
Do
bring in.
you? Okay.
They're the, I can't remember the name of them, but they're
Okay. Yeah, I got 3
Steel.
pairs here too. All this stuff's for us to play with.
Is there a particular brand that's better than other, or are they all comparable?
It's like any tool. Usually the higher you pay, the better the quality will be. But I don't know any brands offhand.
Okay.
Yep. Lynn Lombard, she's a renowned physical therapist in here. She showed me how to do it years ago. And she's got a stainless steel pair. And I mean, dun, 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 next. And she can go through a huge amount of subjects in a short amount of time. I like to take my time. Okay, gang, good. So, you comfortable with carboning? Okay, you comfortable with some more RPEs? All right.